Perfect. I do have 12 p.m. my clock, and I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. The topic today is very important, and I want to make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. So allow me to introduce myself. My name is Marianne Carriles. I am the HR Manager of Professional Development, and I will be here today to assist you with any questions throughout the program. Welcome to today's webinar, Your Realtor Guide to Excellence. April is National Fair Housing Month. We are excited to be able to bring you two of NAR's leading programs, the C2X and the Fair Haven Simulation. As the market moves and changes, you will need to learn how to stand out to better serve your clients. And this is why this is a very important topic today. Today's program will be led by Colette Massingale, NAR Senior Policy Representative for Fair Housing. She will also be joined by Teresa Hill, HAR's Executive Committee Vice Chair. And to answer any questions in regards to the Fair Haven simulation experience, HR board member Susan Ainora will also be joining the webinar. So we have an excellent panel today. Before I formally pass the mic to the ladies, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please write them down in the chat and we will answer them throughout the program or at the end of the program. And you can send the question to all panelists or to everyone in the webinar. It's up to you, but we would like to answer all the questions you have, so you make sure you use the chat for that. And since I know you asked, this webinar will be recorded, and I know it's raining in some parts of Houston, so if you miss some part of this webinar, we will send you that recording afterwards. But of course, watching live is always a better experience, so please stay through the whole webinar. So now let's get started. Ladies, thank you for taking the time today to share your knowledge with us. I'll pass the virtual floor to Teresa Hill. And whenever you're ready, Teresa, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm here today to talk about C2EX. Next slide. So commitment to excellence, or C2EX for short, it was introduced by our National Association of Realtors, and it was launched in 2018 at the Winter Conference. It is to empower realtors to demonstrate their professionalism and commitment to their business at the highest standards. What I really like about this program is it was made by agents for agents. So it was a group of our peers that actually came up with this criteria and the curriculum. It's to amp up your network business and your career, and it's designed around professionalism. Since our launch in 2018, we have won several awards for this program, as you can see on this slide. In 2019, we had a Learning 100 award for just the practical application of the program. The Brandon Hall Group, Excellence in Learning, that is it's the innovation for the platform itself. And we actually got a gold award for that, for the context or for the content. And it was basically for the platform development. And then in 2021, we won an award from the American Society of Association Executives. And this was focused on the members of the association. And then in 2022, we actually won a creative award for our campaign, Amp Up the Volume campaign. Next slide, please. So C2EX, we are actually going to be celebrating our 5-year anniversary this year. We have over 130,000 participants. So we have had over 130 people that have actually started on the platform, and almost 18 of those have been fully endorsed. Please stay tuned for some exclusive perks that are coming this year for endorsed users. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. So some quick facts. I do like that this is very mobile friendly. You can get this on any device, whether it be your tablet, phone, or desktop computer. And it's also self-paced. So it is tailored to the individual. It could take you 10 hours. It could take you 10 months. It's really, it's self-paced. So it's very, very user-friendly for our realtor busy schedules that we all have. I also love that there's no additional cost for this. This is actually through your NAR dues that this is available for you. The only fee that you may have is there is a portion of this where you do have to have a designation. So if you don't yet have some sort of designation, such as Home with Diversity, CIPS, the CRES, something along those lines. If you have to get your designation, then of course there would be a small minimal cost for that. And then last but not least, it does allow you to fulfill your code of ethics, which is just kind of an added bonus. We're also on a 3-year cycle with C2EX to be in line with the 3-year cycle for your code of ethics. So this is designed around 10 C2EX competencies. These are 10 topics that this peer group that designed this program, after a lot of discussion and deliberation, these are the key things that they came up with that are key topics. And I kind of like to think of this as your code of ethics kind of tells you what not to do, and C2EX tells you what to do. And then if you are counting, you can see that there is actually 11 competencies. The last one is a bonus, and it's a broker section for managing brokers. And we'll talk a little bit more about that further in this program. Okay, so first it's kind of broken up in 3 sections: evaluate, enhance, and showcase. To evaluate, you will start off by doing a self-analysis test. There'll be 5 to 10 questions, and how you do on the self-evaluation test determines your learning path. So the way that I answer is going to be different than another realtor answers. So my path is going to be different depending on, maybe my experience, how I answered the question, whether it was right or wrong. And it's all tailored to you as an individual. So again, you will get your personalized learning plan. And this is not just reading a screen. It's all different sorts of different activities that you'll be doing. You may be talking to a virtual client. There's videos to watch. There's interactivity. There's quizzes. And then, of course, there's reading materials as well. Next slide. The second part is you may be doing some sort of a tasks. And that is something that you're going to do, maybe something that you've already done through the course of your career, that you can mark as completed. Otherwise, you'll be instructed to do this certain task. One of the examples is to join a community meeting, whether that be attending an HOA meeting or maybe a city council meeting, something of that sort. Or you can also create your own task. And you can do that as a broker or as an individual agent. So you do have some flexibility there for completing your tasks. And then additional features, you are able to send surveys. This is real-time feedback. You can do a survey about an open house, how your showing went, general performance, or you can also create your own survey. There is also a library where all the materials are available. They're searchable by, by name, by topic. It's a very easy thing to get all of the NAR resources and materials that are made available to you here. And then, of course, we have a weekend and 24/7 video help. So again, because this is self-paced, you can access this at any time and get help at any time as well. And then once you have completed your endorsement, you showcase yourself. So, and you can do this in many different ways. We have, there is a endorsement through, and I believe that's the next slide, but there's an endorsement with Realtor.com. But you also have materials that will be made available to you, such as a table tent that you could leave on your desk. It's a great conversation starter. And then you'll also get a certificate, you know, that, and you can print and frame it, and it's available by download through the C2EX platform. And all these are printable and shareable. And it just shows that, you know, you're committed to the excellence. And then, as I said, we do have a partnership with Realtor.com. For the consumer-facing site, Realtor.com, that will show you as an endorsee. And it will also see, as you can see on the screen, there will be a tab there where you can actually click on it, and then it will you know, tell you that you are C2EX endorsed, and by that icon. There will also be a place on the platform that you can search by name or by state for endorsed realtors. And then this is a good way to refer. The renewal process. As I mentioned before, the renewal process is on a 3-year cycle so that it does coincide with our code of ethics. There is a 6-month window for you to renew. So you can do 3 months prior to your renewal date and 3 months after your renewal date. You will also get emails as your renewal date approaches as reminders. And then you take the C2EX assessments again, because you first of all, we want to refresh our knowledge and new skills, but there may be some new information too. There's always new information being added. And so you'll be, you know, up to speed on that as well with the new materials. So this is more about the brokerage. There is some brokerage admin benefits. There's actually an admin dashboard specifically for brokers. You can use this as a training tool for your agents. You know, suggested content, you can assign tasks. You will also have admin access, where you can track your agents that are going through the program and run various reports as to their progress. You know, so maybe you can nudge them a little bit, you know, if they're, you know, having difficulty getting through, maybe they're taking a long amount of time, you can kind of nudge them. Is there anything, you know, what can we discuss? What can I help you with? What can I get, you know, to get you to the end result? And then, of course, we have brokerage branding. So you can upload your logo and have it branded to your brokerage. So as far as being a brokerage office endorsement, this is done by having at least 80% of your agents in the office as C2EX endorsed. The managing broker must also be endorsed, and you apply to it at nar.com/C2EX/broker. We also have broker endorsement materials, just as we have you know, the other materials for you as an individual agent. We have slider signs for your listings that you can use as riders. We have office window clings that you can you know, put on your doors, and then we have pull-up banners as well. So lots of ways to showcase your brokerage endorsement. So there are just to get started, go to c2ex.realtor. You can download your free materials at NAR/C2X /promote. There's also a email address and a phone. If you would like to call for questions, you're also more than welcome to reach out to me. I am the Texas ambassador for C2EX, along with some other Texas realtors. So if you would like a class maybe for your brokerage, or if you're in some sort of a group, a networking group, I'd be more than happy to do this presentation for your particular office or group. So feel free to reach out to me. I personally, I received my endorsement in, I believe it was 2021. And it was an eye-opening experience for me. It really was. I love that it was engaging and interactive, and it's just an opportunity to, to enhance your skills as a real estate professional. People are, I just feel that as consumers, they're looking for realtors to be honest, professional, and have integrity. And this program will allow you to get skill sets on all of that. So thank you so much for having me. And now I am going to pass it on to Colette Massengill.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's funny you mentioned the clients wanting their realtors to be professional and honest. I don't know if you've seen the latest NAR research that talks about what clients are looking for when it comes to their real estate professional. And of all the things, it is absolutely, an agent or broker who is honest and truthful and ethical. So that's what clients are looking for. So thank you for the presentation. This is fantastic. Yes. All right, so I am going to talk about Fair Haven and why. I mean, can everybody see my screen, hopefully?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, and it should have been at the beginning, so my apologies for that. So my name is Colette Massengill, and I am the Senior Policy Rep for Fair Housing for the National Association of Realtors. And I'm here today to speak with you a little bit about the Fair Haven training platform. So you might be wondering, I know when I teach the Fair Housing course and talk about some of the resources that NAR has out there for our members, I often get the question of why was Fair Haven and even the bias override course even created? Like, where did the impetus for it come from? So I don't know how many of you all had seen the Newsday investigation that happened back in 2019. I know when I was teaching, when I teach the Fair Housing course, I would incorporate a discussion about the Newsday investigation. So as I mentioned, it started, it happened in 2019, and Newsday went out to several, maybe 9 or so brokerages in Long Island, New York, and they sent testers out to find out how agents and brokers were doing with regard to adhering to the fair housing laws and regulations. And what was uncovered was pretty eye-opening. So there were two sort of areas where there were sort of issues that were uncovered as a result of that investigation. One of them had to do with the denial of equal professional services. And so we looked at the statistics and the data from the testing that happened from that investigation. About 19% of the time, Asian American prospects were being denied equal treatment. It happened 39% of the time against Hispanic or Latina Americans, 49% of the time against Black Americans. And then overall, there was a 40% statistical data that suggests that this unequal treatment was happening by real estate agents against prospective buyers of color. So what do we mean so what were some of the examples that were sort of highlighted in that investigation? For one example was the fact that the white testers that were took part in the investigation on average received 50% more listings than were provided to Black testers. And I don't know how familiar you are with the testing, but usually a tester, if let's say you're going to be tested, it'll be a Black tester and a white tester, they'll both have the same criteria. They'll both be looking for they'll both be, pre-qualified and looking for a house in the same price range. So they both have the exact same sort of qualifications. And the idea is to see, well, this person has has the same sort of qualifications and so forth as this person. So are they being treated in the same way? So 50% of the time, more listings were given to white testers. And then another area that was highlighted as a result of the investigation is that prospects of color were put under had more requirements. So for example, the agent or an agent might say, well, I will only take you out and show you properties if you have a pre-qualification letter, but they don't put that requirement on the white tester. So those are just some of the examples of the denial of equal professional service. The other area that was highlighted in the investigation had to do with steering, right? And I know you are familiar with the concept of steering. In the investigation, it was found that the agents showed different homes and different neighborhoods to testers of different races, even after controlling for buyer income and preferences. So essentially the results of that investigation, which was broadcast all over the country, and really was a wake-up call for NAR and for us as an industry. But of course, with every sort of experience like that, it presents us with an opportunity, right? So NAR's response to this investigation, again, we used it. We at Maryland Realtors, where I was before I came to NAR, we used it, this investigation and what was learned from it as a teaching tool, right? So what was NAR's response to the Newsday investigation? They established the ACT initiative. ACT stands for accountability, culture change, and training. So let me just talk a little bit about some of the initiatives under the ACT program that NAR established as a result of the 2019 Newsday investigation. And the goal with the ACT initiative is to basically ensure that our members, all 1.5 million of us, are doing everything that we possibly can, right, to ensure that we're not violating the fair housing laws on the local, state, or national level. So NAR committed to several objectives under this initiative. One of them was to launch a public service announcement campaign to reaffirm our commitment to fair housing, which we have done, and also to alert consumers about what they can do if they encounter a fair housing issue. So that is in the works. We are doing that. We are also working very steadfastly with our state associations across the country to ensure that the fair housing licensing laws are on the books and make sense. A lot of people are not aware that there are quite a few states in the country that do not have a fair housing requirement for either to get into real estate or for your continuing education. And so we are working with our states around the country to encourage them to work with their real estate licensing body if they don't have a fair housing education requirement to obtain one. And there's also, we have a tool where if you're, let's say you're in Texas, you can look at what Texas's fair housing education requirements are as compared to, let's say, Arizona. And so you can kind of get a sense of what the different states' requirements look like. We are also looking at enforcement as well, and that is in the works. And basically what we're doing there is researching or spending some time speaking with our real estate licensing bodies, as well as our fair housing enforcement agencies around the country, and finding out, well, what does the enforcement look like? If somebody is found in violation, does the Real Estate Commission find out about it? So that research is happening right now as we speak as well. We have also integrated fair housing into all of our conferences and engagements. For many of you, I don't know how many of you have gone to either the November meetings or the May meetings in 2022, but we had Richard Rothstein, who is the author of The Color of Law, which is a phenomenal book that talks about some of the different practices, redlining, restrictive covenants. Even he mentions our own code of ethics, but some of the policies and practices that were discriminatory in the past and how they're impacting us today. So he was with us, I believe, in November of last year. And then we had Isabel Wilkerson, who wrote a wonderful book called Cast. She was with us back, I want to say, in May of 2022 to speak about Cast. So we're incorporating fair housing education into all of our trainings, into all of our conferences and so forth. We've also already piloted our self-testing program. We had a broker. So basically the idea here is a broker can sign up to have their agents tested to see how they're doing with complying with fair housing laws. And if there are any issues, then there is a training that follows the testing that happens where the problems, if there are any, are addressed. So that is in the works. We've already had the pilot done, and we have 3 other brokerage companies who are participating in voluntary self-testing in 2023. As far as profiling leaders who are exemplifying best fair housing practices, that would be our fair housing champions. And I don't know if you've been seeing some of the announcements that have been going on, that have been coming out from NAR, because as you know, April is Fair Housing Month. On April 25th, we will be featuring our fair housing champions. These are folks who are in their communities, doing the work, being the change, and just taking the requirements, embracing the requirements and the principles behind fair housing, and really making a difference in their communities. So that those fair housing champions will be featured at our Facebook Live event. It's called Overcoming Barriers, and it's going to be happening on April 25th at 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. There'll be a panel discussion with some of our experts talking about housing affordability, accessibility, and then we will feature our fair housing champions. We are also going to be developing a toolkit around schools for our members. So that's coming. Hopefully we'll be able to get that done in 2023. So that'll be another resource for you. Sometimes it can be very tricky talking about schools. You don't want to get into a situation where you end up engaging in steering. So that toolkit is coming your way. And then finally, NAR is committed to creating more robust fair housing. And that's where Fair Haven came into that's why Fair Haven was created, right? So just a little bit about Fair Haven. Fair Haven is a fictional town that we believe every realtor should visit. It is simulated training. It's designed specifically for realtors, and it uses the power of storytelling to help you identify, prevent, and address discriminatory practices. I've done myself, the Fair Haven training simulation 3 times now. I just did it over the weekend. And it's really a very interesting and engaging experience. Again, it's story-based, and the stories are based on real cases that occurred. There's video, there's the ability to stand in the shoes of a home buyer. You will receive customized feedback. And what's nice about the training is it's at no cost to you, right? So it's a wonderful teaching tool and a great way to sort of get an idea, identify what's happening, how you're, and kind of assess how you are complying with the fair housing requirements, and then take that feedback, which is easily accessible, and implement it in your daily business practices. So what's the call to action? We hope that you will be a fair housing advocate and commit to combating discrimination in real estate. And so get started. If you haven't already, visit fairhaven.realtor. The training takes maybe about an hour and 15 minutes to get through. But again, it's one of the most engaging trainings that you will find, I think, online. And so with that, I am going to stop the share and talk a little bit with Susan about her experience visiting Fairhaven. So Susan, are you there? Fantastic. Oh, I hear a little bit of an echo.
Turn off.
All right, let's see. All right,
Okay.
so I'll start with, I had mentioned that I took the Fairhaven training over the weekend for the third or fourth time. And I've also mentioned that it uses the power of storytelling to help members identify and prevent and address discriminatory practice. So what did you think of that approach when you went through the training? How was that for you?
So is this better on the volume? It's kind of howling a little bit.
That's a little better, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Is yours off? Yes. I'm actually in the same room with Teresa, so I'm hearing some howling. We're trying to get that figured out. I think it's good now. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Ask Teresa to mute. Should I turn the volume on? Because now I can't hear Colette. Colette, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So the question was Fairhaven and how it uses the power of storytelling, right? To help members.
Yes. So yeah, what did you think of that approach?
So I really like that approach because while it's informative, it also makes it more realistic. So, you know, in my opinion, as I was kind of going through it, it helped me actually imagine the actual situation better, rather than just telling me straight up, hey, do this and don't do that. It shows the characters coming out and then, you know, kind of simulating what happens. And then it stops and it asks you a question. All right, you know, was that right or was that wrong, or did an error occur? Or, you know, so by seeing the storytelling approach, it makes it a little bit more realistic, and it makes it easier for us to understand and actually also realize ourselves, ooh, am I doing that? Or, oh, have I ever done that? So in that way, I like the storytelling approach a lot, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I did too. I think it's a really sort of very engaging way to kind of get points across, as opposed to just saying, you know, do this, don't do that. Like you said,
Exactly.
This is like, you're seeing it in action.
Correct.
And that way you can kind of assess, you know, what to do. So agreed. I thought it was very helpful as well. And you also mentioned the feedback, insights, and the best practices. Did you find those to be helpful, easily applicable, or what did you think about the feedback and such?
Yeah, the feedback is good. It kind of re-emphasizes the point that NAR is trying to teach us. So you're talking about, like, you go through the whole simulation and then you answer the questions, and then they kind of summarize the points, right? With like the feedback points. And that's really good because it kind of recaps, you know, what we just went through. And so, you know, it gives you a takeaway with, oh, best practices here would have been this, or best practices there would have been that. So, and it also helps to obviously apply the lesson that was just taught to us, because, you know, sometimes when you just go through it and then you're done and you just kind of go to the next one, you don't get the recap feature. So that feedback and that recap and the application to, you know, real life application is actually a great way to end each section and then go into the next one.
Yeah, that found that to be the case too. And you mentioned sections. So basically, for folks who have not gone through the training, once you get into Fairhaven, your goal is to finish basically finish 4 transactions, to sell a property 4 times, and you're on like a clock. So you have like 6 months to sell these 4 properties. And so each transaction is a scenario. And as Susan mentioned, in that scenario, you're presented with a problem and you kind of have to figure out what to do using your knowledge of best practices. So yeah. What about, I remember, and I just wonder what you thought too, what about the opportunities to reflect? Because we got the, the feedback and stuff like that, but then there were opportunities where you could kind of stop and reflect. Did you find that to be helpful at all?
Well, it's always good to reflect, right? So then you can kind of think about your own life, and then you can kind of think of what just happened in that scenario. And, reflection is always good for any kind of learning situation, because it makes you pause and it makes you think and apply what you just learned to your own self to see, am I doing that right? And then you can kind of improve going forward. So reflection, the little reflection time is also, as well as the summaries, are both very helpful, I think.
Good. What about the videos? I mean, so were you surprised, first of all, to know that these scenarios were actually based on real life cases? And then the victim videos, were they impactful? How did you sort of respond to those?
Yeah, so I was a little surprised that they were based on actual events. It's kind of, you can see that would be out there and that has happened. And that's kind of why we're doing this exercise, so that we all realize that actually happens and is actually happening now. So it makes the Fairhaven exercise even more interesting, because it's actually real, right? I mean, it happens and it's happening. So it makes it very realistic, obviously, since it is based on real things. But it also helps us be careful that, these things are happening, and to be cognizant of it when it happens. But as far as like the victim videos, yeah, it makes me sad, obviously, because you feel bad that it's still happening out there. But it also makes you optimistic that with education on fair housing, that, we can all improve and make a difference. So, I think one of the key points in improvement is first admitting that there's a problem and understanding what the problem is, and then going through the Fairhaven simulation, you can kind of, safely, in a safe environment, live through it, and then, learn from it, and then hopefully improve your business practices going forward.
Yeah, I'm glad you did a wonderful job of sort of kind of putting that in perspective, saying, yes, this is happening, but we can actually do something about it, right? So that it doesn't happen again. I also found it interesting too, to be in the shoes of a buyer. What did you think about that? I know there were a couple of instances.
Yeah, so they have this thing where you're going through it, and then I got a little confused on it at the beginning, because it's like, oh, now they're switching it to where you were the agent going through it, and now you're the other side. You're like the customer, you're like the client. Right. So now you're the buyer or the seller, and then this is happening to you. So then I actually missed a few going through that, because it was like, kind of like, oh God, okay, now I'm this way, or now I'm that way, or there's some parts of it, but it was a very interesting exercise. Like, whoever wrote it, as I was doing it, I was like, man, whoever wrote this is pretty clever, to make us have these different perspectives, right? Because now you first you were driving the ship, and now you're being driven. So the second time around, or whatever the different scenarios, now you're the other side. And so they do role reversals on you, right? And then you put your hat on, now you're the agent, you put the hat on, now you're the client. So it's even more interesting when you're going through it, when you have to wear both hats, and switch back and forth like that. So it helps you understand, what both sides are feeling, because now you're the other side, right?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, for me, it helps me understand. So this is how my client might feel,
Correct.
So I thought that was very helpful. So this will be my last question. What would you say are your sort of takeaways from having gone through, maybe if you had to name like 2 or 3, what would you say were your top 2 or 3 takeaways from having taken or gone through the Fairhaven training?
Right. So the Fairhaven training, I just watched Teresa talk all about the C2X and everything else, but it's the portion of C2X that is focused on fair housing. And it's an exercise that you go through when you're doing your C2X thing. You have to go through this Fairhaven part of it. And the takeaway for me was that, you know, discrimination is still out there in our industry, and that we as an industry just need to do better with that. That starts with being more culturally sensitive. You know, we're coming at you live from, you know, Houston, Texas, and it's, you know, the most diverse city in the nation, actually. So, you know, even us in this diverse city, you know, we should be very culturally sensitive as it is, but I think that there's still a long way to go as far as that goes. Being culturally sensitive to each other and with our clients and just with the people that we interact with on a daily basis, being aware of what we do and what we say. And sometimes what we don't do and what we don't say is also, you know, is also, you know, not good. Being fair and honest with everyone and how we treat them. You know, there's a reason for protected classes from, you know, history until now. And we just all need to be more respectful at times when dealing with people from all over, you know, just other countries or other races or other religions, or, you know, just people that aren't the same as us, especially in our industry, which, you know, we need to be held to a higher standard when we're dealing with everyone. So that was kind of mostly my takeaway from going through the Fairhaven exercise.
And thank you for that. I know when I was kind of thinking about it as well, I would say top 2 or 3 things for me is just the awareness of, you know, the fact that this is in fact still happening, and what can we do about it? As you mentioned, there are solutions. I mean, there are easy things that we can sort of incorporate into our daily interactions with clients so that we minimize the risk, we minimize the chance of violating fair housing law. So the awareness, I think, is really key. Another takeaway for me is just sort of this notion of how we inadvertently make assumptions about people, about situations, about what they may need, and to stop and pause. I know you mentioned that pausing, really important to stop and pause and recognize that sometimes assumptions that we make might not be quite right. And so maybe replacing those assumptions with asking questions and really listening, sort of a takeaway from that. And then I think one of the key takeaways as far as minimizing risk and making sure that you're doing the same thing across the board is having a checklist, right? A checklist or any kind of established procedure. This is what I do every single time with every single client. That's definitely going to make it more likely that you don't go down the road of violating fair housing law. So checklist, you know, establish criteria and procedures that you use every single time. Those kinds of things, I think, will go a long way toward steering clear of violating fair housing laws. So, Susan, thank you so much for your insights. I hope we've inspired folks to take the training. And remember, folks, it's for Housing Month. There are a lot of events that NAR is hosting. I mentioned the one on April 25th. Please check it out. We're really trying to focus on our members and the champions that they are, and all the hard work that they're doing to promote and embrace the principles of fair housing. So thank you, Susan.
Thank you so much, ladies. And this is an opportunity. If anyone has any questions, please use the chat to ask these ladies. I think this was a great program, and it is very important to spread the word, not only this month, that is National Fair Housing Month, but beyond that, right? Especially for your careers as realtors. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I would like to open the floor to you guys in case you have any last minute, suggestions, or if you have any questions.
I just wanted to say one more thing that I forgot to mention. So the C2EX, it's not a course. It's not it's not a designation. It's not a CE course. It's actually an endorsement. So you're being endorsed by, by this program that you can share with your clients and your peers. So just wanted to mention that.
Thank you so
Marian,
much.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I did want to just kind of share some of the events that are happening this month in case people may not be aware. So check your email, because there's a lot of information that you'll be getting about the various events. One thing that you may not see is that there are fair housing grants that you can get. You know, your local board, your state association, they can partner, for example, with, you know, NAREP or NAREB, and you could put on a program or a summit that focuses on fair housing. So there are 2 types of fair housing grants that are out there. So check those out. I know a lot of associations are taking advantage of that. Some other activities that are happening from the 5th through the 30th, you can listen to a Drive with NAR podcast talking about schools and how to sort of navigate questions about schools. On April 18th, for those of you who are brokers, there's the Broker Summit that's happening. And there's going to be a panel discussion about advocacy and fair housing. On April 20th is the debut of Level Up, with the first level highlighting fair housing. And this is all going to be in the information that you're going to be getting. I already mentioned April 25th, the Facebook Live event. The name of that is At What Price? Overcoming Barriers. There's going to be a wonderful panel discussion. Some of the folks that you will hear from, Emily Badger, Nora Guerra, Charles Lowry, and Dana Wade. They're going to be showcasing our members on the 26th in a program called, and these are all virtual programs, so you can access them from anywhere. Jackie Berry, Anthony Lynn, and Rudy Ramirez are going to be talking about the work that they're doing in their communities. And then we're going to be offering, in addition to Fair Haven, there's the Bias Override class, which explains a 3-hour course that you can get CE for. NAR partnered with an organization called the Perception Institute and put together this training. It's a 3-hour, and it's a wonderful, very engaging, storytelling based. There's history there. There's the opportunity to interact. It's a wonderful course that we're going to be offering in person at the May meetings on, I believe it's May 7th. At the RLM, NAR's RLM. So if you're coming to DC, then you definitely want to check out the Bias Override program. That's a wonderful program. And I've taught it 3 times. I'm not teaching in May, but it's fantastic. It's a fantastic class. So that's just what I wanted to share. So thank you for letting me do that, Mary Angie.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And since we are sharing events, I would like to tell everyone to check their chat, because we do have a few more webinars coming up. One is in April 19th, April 20th, and April 24th. And they are going to be centered around, again, Fair Housing Month, because it's very important and we want to get the word out there. I do not see any other questions in the chat, but I do want to thank everyone who joined us today for being here and for supporting HAR and for supporting this cause, which is very important. So if you ladies have anything else to add?
Nope.
Perfect. And this will be recorded and we'll send it to you shortly. I just wanted to say that one more time. But other than that, have a wonderful afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.